Okay, so today we're going to be going over how to create tests on Blackboard. And right here, before we go into our Blackboard page, I just want to show you this page that is found in our Blackboard's workshop handouts. And this is just going over how the big picture of how to create a test. So here what we want to focus on is this aspect right here and the big picture. So the big picture, the first thing you're going to be doing is creating a test. And you're going to be doing that creation in the test tool section of your Blackboard. Once you're done creating the test, we're going to deploy it in a content area. Right? And these are the two big steps that need to be done for a test to be created and taken by your students. Once you've deployed it, your students will then take it. For the most part, Blackboard tests are graded through Blackboard. The only instance where you will need to grade a certain aspect of a test is if you have a short response question or an open-ended question, and perhaps for certain other kind of math questions where you need to really gauge what that answer could be, would be the only instance where you would need to grade specific questions. Otherwise, for multiple choice, true and false, everything else, you are pre-selecting what the correct answer is already. So what I just talked about goes into this grade, the test section right here. And then finally, you and your students will be able to review the answers once they have completed taking the test. And I'll go over, in detail what all these steps entail. But this is the big picture of how to create a test on Blackboard. So let's jump into our Blackboard course. Okay, so this is my practice course that I've been hosting all of these workshops on. To create a test, we do not want to just go into a content area and create it like we did with the assignment, because once we start creating a test from this section, your students are able to see it. And since we still need to work on our test, we want to do that behind the scenes. So first, we're going to go to this course management section, and we're going to go to course tools. And at the very bottom, you're going to see test, surveys, and polls. That's where we're going to head to. And we're going to head over to tests. Okay, so once we're here, we can start creating our test. We would click on the Build Test tab right here. Okay, so you want to give your test a meaningful name. So I'm gonna label this test midterm midterm 2, just because I think I already created a midterm test previously as an example. But you'll give it a meaningful name like Unit 1 test, Chapter 5 test, whatever kind of name you want to give it. I would just suggest keeping it short. Here you have two text boxes where you can write the description and instructions. You don't necessarily need to utilize both boxes. If you just want to write everything in the instruction box, that's perfectly fine as well. But if you want to utilize both, the information that you can put in either or would be like the description. You would describe what kind of material is being taught in the test. So I'm gonna let my students know that this test will cover material that we have gone over in chapters 1 through 6. Please focus on the topics that were discussed during each chapter. So that's the description of the test. If you want, you could let them know here that it's gonna consist of 20 multiple choice, 10 true false, 5 open ended, and so on. You could let them know what kind of questions they have if you want to let them know. Here in the instructions, you could write, this is an open book test. Please do not try to Google the questions while taking the test. You would just give them instructions if there are, like, let's say if you had math questions, and then you could let them know you can use your calculators for this section. You can refer to whatever handout. If you've let them create some kind of cheat sheet index card, you can let them know. You can refer to your index card for any notes that you wanted to have during this test. You can write that here in the instructions, and then you click submit. So then this takes us to our test canvas. This is where we're going to create our test. As you can see here, the description is shown and the instructions. We're going to go to this first tab, which is the create questions tab, and these are all the types of questions that you're able to create on Blackboard. You can definitely, if you want, on your own, play around and test all of these options. For now, I'm just going to focus on one or two of them today, just to save us time, because there are a couple of more steps besides creating that I need to show you. So we're going to go to one of our most popular options, which is multiple choice. Okay, so this takes us to a different page, and you do not need to give it a title. Question title, you can leave blank. You're going to write your question here in the question text box. And the question that I want to ask is, the question that I want to ask is, what year was Caldwell University founded? That's the question. You could make it as short or as long as you would like. Underneath that, we have a couple of options here. So how do you want the questions to be represented? Through A, B, C, capital case, lowercase, 1, 2, 3, or Roman numerals? This is all preference wise. More widely used is the ABC option. You can click whether you want the answers to be laid out horizontally or vertically. Again, that's more of a style of preference depending on how long your answers are. I'm gonna keep vertical, and if, let's say, this is some kind of like math question or open-ended question where your students can be partially right, you can allow partial credit. If you do allow partial credit, you see this other option appears, which would then allow a negative score for an incorrect answer. You could decide if you want to, have that enabled or not. I'm not going to offer partial credit for my question, and this is a good tool to show answers in random order. Because let's say if you have a student in your morning class take this test, and they're friends with one of your other students in your afternoon class, they can't really share the answers because you've made it that the questions and answers are randomized here. So that's a good practice. Here is where you can select how many A, B, C, D, E, options you have. right now it's only showing you 4 is the minimum requirement. But let's say you only have A, B, and C. You don't have a D response. You can see here there's a remove button here, and it lets you remove options. So I'm gonna put random answers here. 1919, 1926, 1839, oops, 1946. Okay, and now you would select, make sure that the right answer is checked off. And then here, our next section is the feedback section. So here, as you can see, you have a correct response for feedback and an incorrect response. If you want to let your students know that they got the correct answer, you can definitely write here, correct. If you want to elaborate on that, you can if you want. Or you could leave it blank. You don't necessarily need to, use the feedback option. It's more of an optional step. If they do have an incorrect, you could be like, that's wrong. And then, you can explain as to why that's wrong. You can let them know, please read chapter 2 again. To go over this topic. The feedback that you give them according to the question is all up to you. And then we have these 2 sections right here, the categories and keywords and instruction notes. So these 2 parts, these are mainly for you, the instructor. Your students do not see anything that you do in this section. So for the categories and keywords, here is if you're going to be creating a lot of questions, or you're going to be uploading a lot of questions from publisher content, then if you want to be able to separate the kind of questions that are being given to you, you could do that by difficulty level, and you can create tags. So I'm going to tag this as an easy question. By different topics, if you have any topics, like I have school spirit, I'm going to add that to that topic. You do not need to utilize all of these, but if you want to, you can. I feel like if you do all of these, it might be a little bit harder to find the question that you might be looking for. So kind of just keep to 1 or 2 of these options. If you do not need to use this category and keyword section at all. Instructor notes, that's if you have any notes in regards to the questions from publishers that you want to just put there to remind yourself about them later on, you can definitely write that there for yourself. Okay, and then you click submit. If you click submit and create another, it's just going to generate another page similar to this one for another multiple choice question. But I'm just going to click submit for now. Okay, and then this is how you would see it. This is the instructor. Your students would not know which one's clicked as correct. So let's go and create another question. So now you could either go back to this tab and select it from there, or as you see, when I hover over the question, I get a plus sign here at the bottom and here at the top, and it basically is just letting me know that if I want to create a question underneath number 1, I could select here, and I'm going to do a true and false statement. Okay, I'm going to ask, a question is, our university mascot a cougar? The answer is true. And you have this option, vertical, horizontal, as always. This is a very straightforward kind of answer. and you have all of these options. These options, the feedback, the categories, and instructors, you'll see in all of the questions that you'll be creating. And then we'll create one more. We'll create one on top of question number 2. Let's see, we can create a hotspot. Now, hotspot, the way this question works is you're gonna attach a file, and I'll walk you through that. This is if you're gonna use a picture as part of your question, and let's say I was teaching a geography class. I wanted one of my students to be able to label a state on the map. Can you find, let's see, what state? Can you find, my question is, can you find Colorado on the US map? I believe I have already a picture that I got from the internet. Yes, right here. You can give it an alternative text, US map. Okay, so then I need to know where Colorado is on a map. Let me figure that out. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so Colorado is this state right here. So here you need to click on the bottom right coordinate. So we're gonna clear this. Well, this is the top left coordinate. So we need to, on the map that we have here on our image, the top left, and then you're gonna drag. There we go. So you're gonna click, and then you're gonna hold down the left side of your mouse, and then just drag it over. That way it makes this box for your students to see. And then both coordinates are set there. And if you didn't like how you did it, you could clear it. You could do it again. So like I said, you're gonna hold down this button, and then you're gonna just make a square here. And then once you're done with that, you could give them a correct or incorrect response and submit. So this is a very large image. I would suggest finding a smaller image if you're going to do something like this. But these are just examples of the type of questions that you're able to create here. As I said, here you have, these are math questions, else or essay, fill in the response, fill in the blank, a hotspot, which is what we just did, matching. There's a lot of options, and you could see which ones would be better suited for your teaching styles. But like I said, I won't go over it. I want to say one of the most trickier ones would probably be like the calculation ones. Can be a little harder at times. I find that harder personally, just because I am not a math major, and for me math is just a little bit harder. Okay, and then here we have a couple of other options. We have a reuse question. So if you've already created multiple tests, like this is my midterm, correct? So I would say if I'm doing a midterm test on Blackboard, I've created other tests on Blackboard as well, but I want to also incorporate them into my midterm. I can do that. I could go to find questions, and these are the questions that I have available on my Blackboard, and I could select one, and then kind of read off from here which ones do I want to add. If it's this one, and let's say I just want to add these two. once I've selected which questions I want, I can submit. As you can see here, and then I have the categories. Do I have any categories? I didn't, make any categories. Topics, school spirit. I could just keep on going. Level of difficulty and keywords. But I really don't have a lot of questions in those topics. So if I want to select all questions, and because I do have the topic of school spirit, I have this here. So that's just a couple of capabilities that we have here. And as you can see here, my 2 questions have been added from that previous block. And as you can see here, all my questions have been made 10 points. And let's say I want to change that, and this one's 1 point. Oops, cancel. This one's 1 point, this one's 10 points, 1 point, and so on. But if I want to change all of these to 5 points, what I can do is I can select all, and here in the points, I could put 5. And when I update, now all my questions are worth 5 points. But let's say 5 means there's only 65. I'm going to do 5.5. So you can just play around, and right now their total would be 100 and their total would be 71 right now. So I'm going to do 6. Select all. You could just play around with that until you're able to, or you could click by question type. If I want just my multiple choices to be worth 8, and then I want my hotspot to be worth 10, and yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Let me not play around with these numbers. But you can see here there's different capabilities. You can select by type of questions, or just select them all and give them all a fair number. Once you're done creating your test, you can click OK. And you see my midterm 2, it's not deployed anywhere, and it tells me the day I created it. So now what I'm going to do is go into the content area where I want the test to be. I'm going to go into my new content area. I'm going to go to my assignments folder, and I want to create that test here for my students to take. So I'm going to go to assessments, click on test, and you see here is all the tests that I have not deployed in my course yet will appear in this box here, and I'm going to click on that. Alternatively, like I was telling you in the beginning, you can create your test from scratch right from that content area, but it's better to do it behind the scenes. I'm just going to click on my midterm 2 test and click submit. And here you have more like settings option. So if you want to be able to show them the description before they begin the test, I suggest that just being checked off. That sounds like a good idea, as well as showing the instructions before they begin the test. Do I want to open the test in a new window? I'm going to say no, because we do not leave Blackboard. We could just stay within the same window. If you want this test to be available to your students right away, I would make sure that to make this available to students, yes. If this is a new test that you're creating midway through, the semester, you can have it so that a new announcement is made when this test is available. Otherwise, if you're kind of just copying over tests from year to year, it will not generate a new announcement for them. So I would just keep this at no, and you could make your own formal announcement to your students. If you want to be able to allow your students to take the test more than once, you can definitely allow them. as many chances as you want, 2, 10, so on. I would suggest, if it's kind of like a midterm, not giving them more than one chances. And also with other settings, here at the bottom, just letting them retake it multiple times does not seem wise, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So I'm gonna not let my students take it multiple times. Force completion. So this button is a hit or miss, and I'm gonna let you know why. So force completion means that once your student starts, that they have to do the whole test in one sitting. But let's say if they're taking their test on a laptop in their dorm, at a cafe, in their house, their laptop crashes, they lose internet connection, something very unexpected happens, and you have this forced completion selected, that means that whatever unfortunate event just happened to your student is going to close them out of their test. So if they were only able to answer 2 out of the 10 questions because they lost internet connection, they can't just reload the page and continue, because the Blackboard has gotten kind of like, since they lost connection, it's gotten a signal that they logged off, kind of, and we'll close them out. So like I said, I would do forced completion if I know that my students are going to be taking this test, in a lab room on campus where they should have steady connection to the internet. But ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to click on this or not. Setting a timer, so you could definitely give your students a time test. 60 minutes is by default. If you want to make it 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours, that is up to you. And I would do auto submission, which means that they only have 60 minutes to complete it. Let's say if they do lose internet connection, they could still, if this is not checked off, but you have this auto submit, they still have that 60-minute time period to complete that test and log back in and get back in there and complete whatever they need to do, because they have 1 hour to do everything. I'm still have that checked out for myself. If you want the test to be available during a certain time period, only like during midterm week, you could have the test displayed, for that week, and you would specify here what time frame that is. Password. Now you could put a password for your test. The password, I've seen it mainly used when a test is being taken in the classroom while in class period. Some professors, just to make sure that students who did not come to class that day don't just log in and take the test. To ensure that only the people who are present in class can take the test, they will put a password here and then just share that password with their students. You don't need to do that if your students will be taking the test, at home or in other places that is not in the classroom. Now here we have this test availability exceptions. This part is mainly going to be used for those students that give you that documentation of needing some extra time with tests or needing to take the test in a different place. You would then go to this section and add a user. And I'm going to select the user that has presented me with that paperwork, and I'm gonna select them, go to submit, and now my student is here. And if I want to allow them multiple attempts, it's only gonna affect that specific user, and I'm gonna allow them 2 hours. Still auto submit, and let's say they need to take the test a different day that's not on class time. I would select the date and then the time frame and save. And these are the settings specifically only for this user, because they've presented me with that paperwork from the accessibilities office. If you want to set due dates for your test, you can definitely do that as well. the due dates will not affect that single individual, only everyone else in the classroom. So if the test is, I'm going to make the test due Thursday by end of day. And if I select do not allow students to start the test if the due date has passed, that means that if a student after March 5th tries to take this test, they will not be able to start it because I'm ensuring that they cannot by clicking this. If I do not click this box, that means that students can still go in and take the test, but they will just have this late mark in the grade center, and then you can decide if you want to take points off or not. So in the self-assessment option, I would suggest just leaving it as is. So you do want to include that test in the grade center calculations. And then here, so here you have certain options as to when your students can see feedback or test results. And you have two options right now. So after submissions, I want to be able I want to show my students the feedback, only the feedback, and perhaps just show whatever answer they have submitted, and then that's for that. That's the first kind of thing. But here, when you have a couple of more options, and let's say I wanna after the due date, I want to show my students the score per question. I want to show them the correct answer and all the answers. And I want to show them all the incorrect as well. And you could distinguish as to, when they have permission to do this. You don't necessarily need to utilize this, but if you do want your students to be able to see the results for their test, you need to enable one of these options. And then here, your test preparation. You could present all the questions all at once, or you could present them one by one, meaning your students have to answer question 1 and submit in order to get question 2. And then you could prohibit backtracking to prevent your students from changing their answers. I feel like this is kind of an evil tool, just because if your student is feeling a bit hesitant with the answers that they're giving, they wouldn't be able to change their mind afterwards. But it's up to you whether you want to utilize that or not. And then randomized questions. This just means that instead of having everyone take the same test and having the questions in order 1, 2, 3, now all the questions are scrambled. So I'll have a different question 1 than the person next to me. And that's a good tool to use. So once I've made all my setting options, I'm going to click submit. And you see my test appears here. And you can see a test icon is this little page with an X and a check mark, and then the assignment is a pencil and a ruler, and that's how you can distinguish that. So if we go to our student mode and I go to that section, I'm going to show you how a student would see this. And I'm just going to randomly answer things. Here, this is a very hard question. I'm not gonna answer that one. 93 Kansas. As you can see, I really liked using this little tool right here, and I'm not sure where Kansas is. I'm gonna say it's right there. That's yeah, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Nope. 36. Okay, and then you guys get the point of how to do this. Save and submit. Your students will have to save and submit their test options, and as you can see here, up here they still have the description, the instructions, and lets them know up here that how much time they have remaining. And it lets me go through the questions. So I'm gonna just save and submit, And it says I have not completed the following questions, but that's okay for now. I'm just showing you what that is. Once I've submitted the test, this is where your students will see this, kind of like their receipt that they've taken the test. And when they click OK, they go back to this the test, and they get to see just the answers that they selected. Because I just wanted to show them this. And then after the due date, they'll be able to see all the correct answers. I'll let them know like which things need to be which were right and which were wrong. And as you can see here, which I put this was an open-ended question. What was your major? And I wrote computer. Needs grading. That's something that you would need to go back into gradebook and grade yourself, but everything else was graded for me. And I'm gonna exit. I'm gonna keep the preview user. And when I go to my grade center now, needs grading, you see they have the midterm here. It appears for my student, and it'll take me and it'll let me know, which ones were right and which ones were wrong. And after the due date has passed, your students will be able to see it like this. They'll be able to see, wrong answer given, this was the right answer. And then this one, it's letting me know that, do I want to give them a feedback on that? What score do I want to give them? I'll give them a 6. And then once I'm done, you can override any of these answers if you ever feel the need to override it. And I'm going to click submit. So now my student can click on the test and they could see their full grade. And you could also see their full grade in the grade center. I got a 48 on that test. But that's basically everything that there is to do with tests. One other thing that you can do when you do get publisher content, like a publisher already pre-made test, and you want to upload that test to Blackboard, you would go to Pools, and you would import the pool. So it has to be a zip file for you to be able to import it to Blackboard, and that's, like I said, the publisher content. They'll be able to give you the right kind of file format to import it. And once it's been imported, you'll have here like question pools, which is just like different types of questions in different groups. As you can see, I do not have any publisher pools, so I can't show you how to do that, but that is how you would do that. If you do have any other questions in regards to other aspects for creating tests, you can definitely reach out to us. We'll be able to answer any of your questions that you're having. And then, so this covers the last part of the Blackboard Essentials 3, which was the test. Our next workshop will be the Blackboard Essentials 4 video, and that's going to cover the grade center. So I'll see you guys in the next video.